about in a minute. For those of you who are really looking to talk forward to the second talk tonight from Nicholas Carello on the from Puppet, you're going to be sorely disappointed because unfortunately his son's taken ill and taken to hospital, so he has had to rush off home and can't attend. What we're going to do instead is do a little bit of a panel session. So we've got four volunteers, and when I say volunteers, I mean I told them they were on the panel. So that's Angus from HPE, Peter from Justic, Hannah from Pendrica, and Marcus from Microsoft. So what we're going to do is fill up the second session. We basically give you the opportunity to ask some questions about DevOps, culture, automation, lean, metrics, and sharing. Or you might want to ask technical questions about Azure or technical questions about some stuff. Obviously, there's going to be a range of skills and topics in the panel. So I'll act as a moderator and I'll just ignore anybody that asks a really nasty question and move on. Is that okay with everybody? Because we all want to, I mean, you guys come, we want to try and fill the panel in. And I like panel sessions because I think they give you an opportunity to do something a little bit more interactive. WinOps Conference 2016, if you hadn't heard about it, it's Tuesday the 24th of May at Skills Matter, so their new code node. Microsoft are our sort of major sponsor, which is why we've got head of the Windows Server Division and the inventor of PowerShell, Jeffrey Snover, coming along, which we're really, really excited by. We've also got Ed Robinson, the Microsoft scripting guy. Wilson. Wilson, the Microsoft scripting guy. Who the fuck's Ed Robinson, though? Marcus. Okay. Oh, God. We've got Marcus Wilson and Ed Robinson. Sorry, we've got the Microsoft scripting guy coming. Who was there? Those of you who were there for 2015, he was there by the video. There is a call for speakers currently open. We can circulate the link around in the thank you for this as well. So if any of you are interested in speaking, if any of you are Microsoft MVPs, this is an official Microsoft MVP event, so it goes towards your MVP community credits that you need to do to maintain your MVP status. We've shown it as Tuesday the 24th. We're in the process of organising some workshop days on the 25th, but we're still trying to exactly work out who's going to present what and, more importantly, who's going to pay for it. So when you're blocking out your diary, and particularly if you're travelling down from elsewhere, block out the 24th and the 25th, because I think the workshops, that stuff is going to be really good. We just need to get an agenda for that. We have a survey monkey, but unfortunately the link to the survey isn't on. We've got a survey, and I'll send this out around the moment. And most of you should already have been sent this. We're just trying to do a survey to find out what your needs are. What are you interested in? Are you only interested in automation? Are you only interested in Azure and PowerShell DSC? Are you interested in, Puppet, Chef, Ansible, or Windows? Are you interested in culture, lean, metrics, and sharing, and how to actually do the cultural side of DevOps? We really want to know what topics you're interested in, what technical topics, what social topics and stuff like that. So we've got a survey. We'd really, really help if you could fill that out and then we'll circulate that link again as well. Blah, 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 that we are asked if anybody wants a job, come and see me, got plenty of vacancies. Come and see me directly, so I don't have to pay Prism. But if you're recruiting Prism, we'll sort it all out for you, and obviously focused on the DevOps market and strongly focused on the WinOps market. Very interestingly, the term WinOps, which basically we coined, what didn't exist, we've done searches, is actually now starting to trend on Windows. And actually Google just created a repository on GitHub /Google/WinOps. So somewhere along the line, the term WinOps is actually starting to grow. It's a thing now.
You copyright it.
No. But you're open now. You can't talk like that. It's not all about trademark. So yes, the agenda tonight is Marcus talking about automation deployment of infrastructure modules in Azure. Mostly ARM. And then we're going to have a follow-on. We'll do the panel session. pizzas and beers, and then head off to the pub later on when you get kicked out. 2 minutes walk if you can't find it. It's really near to pubs, it should be able to smell it. That's pretty good. Other events to look out for, obviously, back to Europe and all sort of stuff, Azure user group, and more importantly, WinOps conference. With no further ado, we'll hand it over to you. Did you even put the slides in the
Right. Good evening, everybody. Thanks so much for coming. It's great to have a brilliant turnout. Steve's introduced me. I'm Marcus Robinson, Technical Evangelist at Microsoft. I'll tell you a little bit about myself shortly. DevOps. So what are we on about? My background, traditional IT infrastructure guy. Okay. Worked with developers in the past, and quite often being on the side of the wall where we get handed in software, we go and try and install it, and all hell breaks loose. Yeah, we do our best at the end to land on our feet. Yeah, I think most of the time we do a good job of that. So what we're trying to do is, how can we avoid these situations? A bit about me. So yeah, 12 years as an infrastructure specialist. I was actually MD of Microsoft Partner up in Leeds. We provide the outsourced IT services to a wide range of companies. My background, Windows Server, System Center, and Azure. Okay, pre-Microsoft. And a lot of that, one of the things we did, we had hosted customers' infrastructure in Colo. Okay, so hosted SQL, Active Directory, remote desktop services. Came to the point where we're going to have to reinvest in kit, and we made the decision, let's start migrating things to Azure. So that's sort of my background. Also, in the past, 4 or 5 years, done quite a lot of enterprise consultancy, as the business sort of ran itself, and delivered training for Entry International, and written some of their courses, their Azure course, and Windows 10 course. So I've been at Microsoft just coming up 3 months. A big part of my role is to try and get us involved with the DevOps communities. It seems like last year and previous years we haven't been out there talking about DevOps as Microsoft. So that's one of the key things I want to try and do. WinOps was the first event I went to, actually, my first week, second week at Microsoft. So it's great to actually be here. Definitely an ops guy, but as you'll see the content tonight, I've got some dev background. I started my company doing web development initially, and we did bits of IT support. I feel like I'm going back to being a dev, although I'm still using my infrastructure skills. Find me on Twitter, Technician. If we've got some tweets tonight, the more noise we get, the more likely Microsoft are going to pay for more things. So do lots of tweeting. Okay. At Microsoft, when we talk about DevOps, hopefully, who's familiar? Is anybody new to DevOps? Be brave. Anybody new to DevOps? Right? A few people? Okay. So, at Microsoft, when we talk about DevOps, and elsewhere as well, we're talking about people, processes, and tools. Okay, making the 3 work together to have a continuous cycle to provide continuous value to the end users. So whatever we do as part of the development cycle, the aim is that we're going to provide value to the end users. And we learn from our experiences, and that feeds back into the cycle. I'm more of a products guy, I'm a deep technical guy, less involved in the culture, okay, but I'm sure when we get to the panel session, there'll be people who'll be quite happy to expand on that. The Microsoft DevOps ecosystem. Who works with technologies that you can see here? Anybody use any of these? Yeah. Anybody not use any of this, the Microsoft ecosystem?
Just the .NET bit.
Just the .NET bit? Okay, so development, Visual Studio, TFS, of Visual Studio Team Services, formerly Visual Studio Online. Okay. Then build and test, or VSTS, and that's my area as an infrastructure guy. Deployment, System Center. I used to use System Center Virtual Machine Manager, I still do, service templates, things like that. But moving more into resource manager templates in Azure, which is the focus of tonight's talk. And then we've got things like application insights for monitoring what's going on or learning so we can feed back into the cycle. All these technologies will work, be it on-prem, in the cloud, or we can join the two together. And we have this slide. You might have heard Microsoft is sort of changing our mindset on things a little bit. We understand that whatever your business and your organization needs to use the tools that are right for the job you're doing. Okay. So we're quite happy for you to be using alternate technologies. Okay. And we're doing our best to make sure all the products and services we offer integrate with them and enable you to use them. Okay. So who uses technologies on these slides? Yeah, good things again. And you'll see as time moves on. So my history, I'd say pure Microsoft. I've done more sort of open source or non-Microsoft technologies because we're doing open source now in the last couple of months than I've done in the past 12 years of my career. Yes, that's how we change it. What we're going to cover. So infrastructure as code, on Azure Resource Manager templates, configuration management, we'll look at PowerShell DSC and Azure Automation, and release management and Visual Studio Team Services Release Manager. And speaking at events like this, I try and come up with ways that we can, a lot of people are new to DevOps. What do we mean by infrastructure as code? Can I have a volunteer? Volunteer? Oh no. So, all right. This is the dev environment. So we've got a dev environment.
No, that was more realistic. I would spell it out.
So, let's start with this. So this is our dev environment. It's been designed by our devs, generally, what they think our production environment is going to be like. Yeah? That familiar for people? Now, we have a product. Now, I wasn't intending to do this with beer, but unfortunately there's no beer allowing this for, so I had to run to Sainsbury's and buy some couscous. So, okay, can you deploy our product into dev? No. Can we have a new policy?
I'm just being realistic.
I've only been in 3 minutes, so...
Oh, there's a read me, you say.
Keep it on the table. I thought couscous was quite safe. It was bad enough when someone's trying to dial Bill Gates on Skype. Right, so pop it in the dev environment. Do as you're told. Devs never do as they're told, do they? Yeah, from the infrastructure guy's point of view. Not too much of an issue. Yeah, so that, we're just getting started. The devs have created the product. Go and sit down. Interested. Anyone else? Come on. Up you get. Right, then. I knew this was a bad idea. Now, test environment. Now, I did have a test environment with me, but it broke on the way down. So like we do sometimes with testing, hopefully a lot of you are now moving on from this sort of situation, but it resonates with me in the past. Go and find some kit somewhere, some space on some servers to do some testing with. I went down to Sainsbury's, bought a salad, emptied it out. So this is our test environment. Test environment, not quite like what the devs intended for production. Yeah, so we want to pop that down. I'll call that test. Put it in the room, and I want you to move our product from dev into test. It's all right.
Yeah, the release notes just vanished.
And then we have our production environment. I just need something. Now, our production environment isn't quite what we envisaged at the beginning. Yeah, it's a bit different. So, we've got our production environment. Move this out of the way. Has anybody got a Hoover? Alright, just got this product. Okay, we've got our production environment. Without making too much of a mess. Can you deploy from test into production? Okay. So this is what happens. Sorry, stop there. So we end up with these difficulties of getting the product along the release pipeline. Yeah, we end up with hurdles because things aren't quite what we expected.
And it would have been a different guy doing it anyway.
It would be a different guy doing it. I need someone else. That's only, that's only some help, man. I don't want to be blamed for making a mess. I'm saying my volunteer wasn't very good. So we end up having to use some tooling. Okay, so we've got our tooling, and hopefully we can deploy nicely from test into production. We have to give it a bit of a shake. Hold the bottle at the same time. with beer, it might have flowed a bit better, but in hindsight, perhaps beer's a bad idea. Because we're using the right tool. So let's get rid of this. And what we're going to actually do is ensure that every environment along the way is identical. So this is that. Okay? And we can use the tooling. Now I want you, as quickly as possible, to go from dev to test to production. And what we're trying to show here is if our environment is identical that we're deploying into, and we're using the correct tooling. Now, put it all in there. Put it all in there. Yeah, give it a shot. Yeah.
As opposed to deploying it and leaving half the DLLs in the other environment.
Give it a shake.
It's going on. Those DLLs weren't necessary.
You forgot about them.
Yeah.
Didn't know what they were anyway.
Okay. Then so move the funnel into test. So the tooling. Yeah. So we're using the same tooling throughout the process with a consistent environment. Good. Much better than my first volunteer. And this is what I say is one of the key concepts why we do infrastructure as code. What we need to be able to do is deploy an identical environment all the way through our release pipeline. However many stages we've got, okay, yeah, deploy to production, yeah. And it's not a lot of hassle. Okay. And it also means that once we've defined our infrastructure, it doesn't matter who comes along, we've got a predefined environment. Does this make sense to people? Yeah? Great. Well done. Thank you. Round of applause. Perhaps I'll never try with beer. Okay. So just to go over that, we've got our infrastructure defined. We can deploy it to devs, stage, production, whichever environments we've got. Which enables us to accelerate our delivery process, reduce remediation periods, all good stuff. Back in the Microsoft world, Microsoft Azure. Who's heard of Microsoft Azure? Yeah, or Azure, what they call it in the States. Okay, Azure. I can't say it. They always laugh at me over there. So we've got cloud infrastructure. On top of that, we've got services such as IaaS, infrastructure as service, PaaS, platform as a service. There's loads of Azure services. They're coming, thick and fast. I can't keep up with it. Okay. And now what we've got on top of these is the Azure Resource Manager. It's basically like an API that enables us to communicate with them, and we can communicate with the Resource Manager using a number of technologies, be it Portal, the web portal, PowerShell, the Azure CLI, or various bits of DevOps tooling. And in preview, we've got Azure Stack. Who's heard of Azure Stack? Yeah, about 34% of the room. So we're giving you the ability to deploy Azure infrastructure within your data center. Why do we want to enable you to do this? Okay. Initially, it's in preview at the moment. We're not going to have all the same services that we get in the public cloud. It's going to be a subset of them. But it means that when we're deploying our infrastructure, we can use the exact same tooling and the exact same processes to deploy it, be it on-prem or in the cloud. It might be we decide to have our dev and test in the cloud and production in the data center. So everything I'm going to show you tonight, okay, can be done in either on-prem in the future with Azure Stack or in the public cloud with Azure. Okay. I'm a technical guy, so you're going to see quite a few demos. What I will say about the demos, there's a lot of PowerShell and things in there here. My purpose tonight isn't to teach you how to do PowerShell, isn't to teach you all these commands. It's just to give you an idea of some of the tooling we've got available and the concepts involved. Okay. If you do want to know more about it, we can talk about it over a few beers later. Okay. So, what's an Azure Resource Manager template? Looks a bit like this. It's written in JSON. Okay. We've got 4 sections: parameters, variables, resources, and outputs. And I'll show you a bit more about those in a moment. We can create a Azure Resource Manager project in Visual Studio. It's just in the Azure Resource Group. We go there, create it, and it creates a blank template for us. What might we want to deploy into our template? Any Azure service that is managed by Resource Manager can be deployed using a Resource Manager template. I'm going to click on Resources, add a resource. Seeing here, we've got all different services. I'm going to keep it basic. Windows Virtual Machine. Call it VM1. Needs a storage account, so I'm going to create a storage account. Storage account names need to be unique across Azure, so time on that's my normal trick. And a virtual network. Add that, and all of a sudden we see we get some things within our template. We've got our resources defined in JSON. We've got a virtual machine here. And we see all its properties, hardware profile, so the VM size in Azure, the OS. Got the NIC that's attached to the VM, our virtual network, and storage. We have parameters. When we deploy the template, users can specify various information, such as the type of storage account, VM name, admin username and password, and the OS version. Okay. And we have variables. So variables users aren't prompted for, but we can specify and want to use them anywhere in the template. Hopefully that's self-explanatory. We can customize them. If we want to move, say, a parameter to a variable, we can get headers in the JSON. Takes us, for example, if I'm always going to want to use 2012 R2 data center, take the OS version out. Okay, get rid of all the options. And then our OS would always be data center. Okay. Not going to go into a great deal more depth, okay, of how we build templates, because I think we'll be bored to death looking at JSON all night. Okay. But I want to show you how to deploy Resource Manager. First of all, so I've used 2012 data center there. I've made a note there. We have quite a lot of different virtual machine images available on Azure now. It takes a few minutes for this script to run, so I ran it earlier. I think my last count was 1,000 something different images we can deploy, or types of images. So anybody got any ideas of what they might want to deploy in Azure?
Linux VM with SQL on it.
A Linux VM console.
HashiCorp console.
Sorry?
HashiCorp's console.
HashiCorp, right. So we've got Ubuntu server. That's just Ubuntu as an example. So how do you spell that?
CONSUL from HashiCorp.
Do you know it's there?
No.
No. Like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's not there. So you could then create an image and submit it. But we've got like firewalls and things. Barracuda do firewalls. Okay, we've got Oracle servers.
Just saying that.
Yeah. So you get the idea. We've got lots and lots of different images that we can use. So let's come back to my PowerShell. And what I'm going to do is create a new resource group, okay, called WinOps demo in West Europe. I'm just going to run that. Okay. I've already got a group called WinOps demo. Let's call it WinOps demo. Let's call it 5. I don't think we've got 5. So let's run that. That's going to go and create a resource group. I'm going to grab some credentials. So these are the credentials that are going to be given to my VM. I'm creating a hash table with the VM name, admin name, OS version. So I'm using Nano Server here. So that's in 2016. The only reason I'm using Nano Server is because it's small, it can deploy quickly for demo purposes. So let's just initiate that. I'm just going to open a few tabs in Edge that I'm going to show you shortly. And I'm going to start the deployment. So I'm starting the deployment using the new Azure RM resource group deployment. After the template files, this is one I created earlier, it's just a basic VM similar to what I just showed you. The resource group name and the parameters. And that starts deploying. Let's code that over here. Oh, I'm not signed in. It's not going to show any passwords on here. Signed in. Rather than me clicking through, I've just created some shortcuts to get to the places. Let's find it in my resource groups. There we go, WinOps. So you can see in this resource group you can create, we start to deploy a VM, network interface, storage account. We can check on the process of that deployment. We can do all this via PowerShell as well. I just think it's quite nice to see things by the GUI. Okay, we can see deployment status. So at the moment, it's created the VM, it must be still spinning up. Okay. Next thing, so that was deploying a template via PowerShell. We can also do it creating a new resource. If I click new, type in a template. We can do it with Portal. I can go and grab my code. Let's go and grab that VM template. So there's a number of ways we can use the Azure CLI, which works on OS X and Linux distribution. So if I use the portal, I can paste a template in there. Save, and you'll see it automatically then prompts us for the required parameters, and we can deploy the template that way. I want to show you GitHub. So it said, look, how do I get started with this? You know, I don't understand resource manager templates. And what do all good IT developers, IT pros do? Pinch stuff off other people. I saw a tweet was going around, what was it? O'Reilly book or something, wasn't it? Stack, you know, how to copy and paste from Stack Overflow. Yeah. Yeah, we all do it. So what we've got is the Quick Start template gallery. It's on GitHub. If you just search for Azure Quick Start templates, you'll find it. All the ones with a number in front have been provided by Microsoft, and we've got a lot of community templates. Okay. See, there's a good selection of things. So, for example, I think SQL was mentioned earlier. So let's see. So we can say, look, here we've got SQL Server 2014 in an always-on configuration with all the PowerShell DSC resources as well, which I'll show you later. You can see we've got the template, yeah, in there. We could then, you know, copy that out of GitHub and edit it ourselves, or we can deploy it straight to Azure. We can just click deploy to Azure. Take me to my internal version of the portal. It's mine on my notebook. Okay, you can see it prompts you for all the parameters to do with our SQL Server, the VM sizes, domain names, SA passwords. Yeah, we get the idea. Yeah, so that's the basics of ARM templates. A lot more to it. I could speak to you about them for a week. Okay, but just give you an idea what they are and how we can deploy them. So what about configuration? Yeah, we deployed these servers. They've got an operating system, but there's nothing actually configured on them. Okay. So again, I was trying to think of a real-world scenario, like moving the couscous between the environments. Anybody come across this book? Hannah's nodding. Yeah. So I was reading the Phoenix project earlier this year. I started Microsoft and said, "Here, read this." Yeah. Joanna, my partner, at the same time, she was reading this book, The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying: How to Declutter Your House. Yeah. I think it's a great example of configuration management. A light-hearted view. I showed Joe what I've done. I've been allowed, so it's all good. Yeah. So the whole idea behind this book is you take everything out of your cupboards, you chuck it all on the floor, you buy boxes and things, you chuck out everything you don't use, and you fold it all up nice and tidy. This is our bedding. It's a real picture. Do you believe that's not what our bedding looks like? Now, this is compliant. Yeah. Then I work from home, okay? So I get to do the washing quite often. Okay. When I put the washing away, am I compliant? Not at all. Yeah. So what happens is, Joe gets home from work, and we have a discussion. Go, what's gone on? Something's gone wrong. Notices it's not compliant. And then either we just let it go, and it remains non-compliant until we do something about it, or it gets rectified and goes back to the compliant situation. Bit of an analogy, but that's what we want to do with servers. Okay? We need to deploy configuration, so into our production environment. We have a configuration management service that monitors that configuration. If there's any configuration drift, it goes, oh, there's a problem, and I'll go and correct it until it's compliant. Okay. So we use this for, it could be installing software, it could be firewall rules, anything we want. And the demos I'm going to show you, I've done the whole demos without ever logging onto a server. Okay, this has all been done using configuration management. Why do we want to do this? If there is configuration drift, so we have an admin that changes something, it gets rectified. Okay, without any human interaction. Again, reduces remediation time, reduces deployment time, and we get higher availability because there's less chance of things going wrong. There's a number of configuration management technologies available. It's just a very brief selection. I know we've got quite a few people who use Chef and Puppet in the audience. What I'm going to show you is what we've got in the Microsoft stack. Completely upfront, it's not as mature as some of these other products, but I think it's important you see where we're going at Microsoft and what is available. And I'm going to use PowerShell Desired State Configuration and Azure Automation DSC service. What's PowerShell DSC? Again, I'm not going into a great deal of depth, but we have configurations that we apply to servers. We have a number of resource blocks in that configuration. A resource block will specify, it might be that IIS needs to be installed. This file needs to be downloaded and copied. This firewall port needs to be opened. We compile these configurations, and then we can either push them onto our servers, or our servers can pull them down. And we have a local configuration manager. There's lots of properties we can configure, such as, this is just off the Azure GUI, refresh frequency, how often it's going to check for a new configuration on the server. We've got configuration mode frequency, how often is it going to check that the configuration is compliant. And we've got different configuration modes. We can just apply it once and forget about it. We can apply and monitor it, so we know when it becomes non-compliant. Or we can apply and correct it. So the local configuration manager will go away and automatically correct the situation. So, we also get settings for reboot. So, if we install a service, does our server need a reboot? Do we want to go ahead and reboot, or do we want to manually go and do that? Get the idea. And Azure Automation DSC. This is hosted what we call pull server. It hosts our configurations. We register our servers with the pull server when we deploy the ARM template. So say, hi Azure, I'm this server, give me my configuration. And they pull down the configuration. If we make any changes to the configuration, we make that up in the cloud, and the servers get the latest version. Just want to point out as well with this, although I'm using VMs in the cloud, we've now got PowerShell DSC for Linux. It's in its early days. I have used this as part of the demos. Although I'm using VMs in Azure, these could be physical servers on-prem. They just communicate over the internet to the cloud service. So let's have a quick look at this. So where are we at? So I'm going to bring up another ARM template, a bit more complex this time. As I said, my history has all been through Microsoft. Since I've been at Microsoft, I'm getting pushed to do more non-Microsoft technologies, so we're aware of what's going on. So I thought, although we wouldn't do this in production, I'll do exactly what I've done with the Windows VM, with a Linux VM as well. Okay? So I've got an ARM template with a Windows VM and a Linux VM, and I've added a new resource to these, which is the PowerShell DSC extension here. Okay? I've added that. So if I go and click on here, and all this does is says when the server boots up, tells it where to go and connect to. It has our security details for our Azure automation service, where to go and connect to, and what configuration to download. So I think we're going to have a quick look at a couple of these configurations. I've kept this simple, because I don't want to bombard you with code. You can see here, we've got a resource block installing IS, installing the web server role. Nice and easy. And all I'm doing, I've got a script that downloads my website from GitHub. I've just zipped it up. Okay. And it extracts it to www. Nice and simple. This doesn't execute until IS is installed. And I've done a similar thing with Linux. Make sure Apache is up and running, download an archive, and extracted it. Okay. What can we do with DSC? We get a number of built-in resources, but we have the PowerShell gallery now, which I search for DSC. These are all the PowerShell modules available. You'll see we've got anything that starts with X is a pre-release DSC resource. We've got things like configure Windows Defender, SQL Server. There's lots and lots. Even things I think we can do Chrome. We can, there's a DSC package to install and configure Chrome if you want to do that. And we've got packages for Linux. They all start with N, so we can do a few on there, networking, computer management. Early days, a few more on that. So we can download the packages from there and use them within our configurations. Now all this PowerShell, I've run this already. I'm just going to explain briefly what I'm doing. Again, I'm deploying a resource group, creating a storage account, creating a storage token, then creating an Azure automation account. Okay, in our resource group, getting the security details, importing the modules we need. So I'm uploading our zip files to our storage account. I'm uploading my DSC configurations, so that was the Windows VM1 and the Linux VM1. They have to be compiled, so the Azure DSC service carries out compiles these, so they're ready to be pulled by the servers. Okay, I've created the MOF file for the Linux server. The Linux onboarding is a bit more manual than the Windows one at the moment. I'm hoping that'll change quite soon. A lot of these things move along quite quickly. I've got our parameters. Just point out that timestamp, pass a timestamp in, because if we were to redeploy the ARM template and we change our DSC configuration, the ARM template is still the same, because it's just linking to our DSC files. By putting a timestamp in there, it changes, so it'll automatically get redeployed. It knows there's a change every time. So I'll just show you what my template is. This website, armviz.io, it's created by someone in Microsoft. I think it is actually going to be integrated into the Azure portal in the future. But we can look at our templates and give us sort of a graphical representation. So we can see what we're doing. So let's look. Let's just rearrange this a bit. So we've got two servers, one's Linux and one's Windows, in an availability set, so on the same storage account. They both have a NIC attached to the same virtual network, and I've put a load balancer in front of them, a public IP address. Yeah. We can drag and drop things onto here using this. I tend to use JSON just because I find it easier and quicker, and it actually has exactly what I want, rather than what somebody else has decided I want. Jump back to the PowerShell. So let's show you inside the automation account. So we can see we've got an automation account, our Linux and Windows VM are deployed, that I've just described. We jump into our automation account in Azure. We have assets, so we have to, any modules, PowerShell modules that our DSC configurations need, we have to upload them to assets, so I've done that in that PowerShell. We see our DSC configurations. I've got our Linux configuration, our Windows configuration up there and compiled. I've got two nodes, okay, Linux and Windows, which are linked to these two configurations. I'll just show you, say, the Windows configuration. That's not produced as Linux, so it's non-responsive. Let's see if my demo works later. But what you can see is it's compliant, it's the Windows service compliant. We can see the different things have been installed. We've had the Windows feature installed, web server role is compliant, and my script is compliant. If there's somebody logs in and changes something, we'll get an exclamation mark, we can configure alerts, and we can configure it to automatically go and reconfigure itself. So all being well, if I open up this URL here, okay, what I've created two websites, one for the Windows server, one for the Linux server. All being well, let's see, if our Linux server's down below, that someone should show it. Let the demo go through with me. Hey, there we go. So it wasn't responsive at first. So as you can see, there we go. Yeah, I'm being load balanced across the two servers. There's different load balancing factors. Just to show, I've used the same technologies with two completely different platforms. And as I see it moving forward, the platform becomes, so the operating system on the service becomes less important. Yeah, it's the service we can provide to our users. We use whatever we're happiest to use. Okay, back to the slides. Yeah, so release management. I'm going to show you Visual Studio Team Services Release Manager, which automates the deployment of our infrastructure to these different environments. And we can use continuous deployment, so that every time we commit a change to our code, and our code could be our infrastructure we're changing, or it could be our actual software build. You know, we can specify what's going to trigger the build. It goes, gets built, and automatically deployed to a dev environment, or whatever environment we call it. Okay, so let's have a look in STS Release Manager. I started messing with my demos. I was on holiday last week and I started messing with my demos this week. So as you'll see, it's been a bit up and down. You'll get the idea, hopefully. Has anybody seen Visual Studio Team Services Release Manager before? It's in preview at the moment, I believe. I lose track of what's in preview, what's not in preview. Steve probably knows that it's still in preview. Yeah, it's still in preview. What I've done, I've defined 3 environments. I just did it on the same line as with beer bottles. Dev, stage, and production. And what I've got is a PowerShell script that deploys our resource group and storage. That just creates the resource group, just configures our storage, uploads all the artifacts to Azure storage. I've got a PowerShell script that compresses the website and zips them up. Okay. And I've got an Azure resource group deployment. Okay. And we can, and this is deploying the resource manager template. I'm passing in the parameters from earlier on in the release pipeline. I can add new tasks. So it's drag and drop. As you can see, there's a wide range of tasks in there, not just from Microsoft Build. I don't think they've been showing you Android builds and things that long ago in the Microsoft product. Yeah, just to give you a rundown, there's all sorts of things in there. You can, anything you can script can be put into your release pipeline. I just wanted to show you, including testing. So we can do our automated testing. We can pass testing, automatically deploy to the next environment. We've also got the Visual Studio Marketplace, which has some third-party integration in. We've got things like, anybody use, we've got Apache things. Jenkins, anybody use Jenkins? Yeah? So you can configure VSTS Release Manager to go and pull your builds from Jenkins. Okay? So we'll actually use the release pipeline within VSTS, but we don't want to rip out our Jenkins infrastructure. Leave that there and just maybe use our ARM templates on the Microsoft side tooling. We use Jenkins for our software build, and then mesh the two together. And if we go and have a look at releases, okay, I've not deployed it into production, but you can see these are 3 environments. Start messing with my demos. And it's moved from dev to staging. And we can see what our current build is in each environment. If we want to go and move it to the next one, we just click deploy it into production, yeah, and it will automatically deploy it. Or if I come back and edit, I can say configure the environment, deployment conditions, and say, look, after the release, automatically deploy. If it goes to staging and everything's good, automatically deploy to production. We can configure approvers. So it won't approve until someone manually goes and says, yeah, deploy that. We get variables for each stage. And it's using, my build agent is actually sat in an Azure VM. Azure subscription. Okay. Bring us to the end. A few resources we have. First of all, we want your feedback. You know, we're going around user groups doing sessions like this. I put a URL up there, the ak.ms one. It's a very short survey. I know Steve's got a big survey, monkey survey. All it is 3 questions on your feedback of what we've done tonight so far. And any feedback you've got about Microsoft products and technologies, the product teams really want to engage with people using the products. Yeah. Either at the end of a Skype business connection, yeah. If you've got feedback and things you want to see happen, let me know. It's surprising how many customer requests now actually we see happening. So it'll be really grateful if you can fill that in, and it also shows that we've had some people here today. Some videos on Channel 9. Anybody use Channel 9? A couple of people. Channel 9 is a great resource if you work in the Microsoft world. If you're new to DevOps, we've got the DevOps Fundamentals series. 20-minute videos going through the different DevOps practices. You can download them as well, watch them when you want, or watch them online. DevOps Dimensions is quite nice. That's more case studies. A lot around what Microsoft are doing with DevOps. Okay. Some public stuff in there. How Bing are using testing at scale. And if you want to learn more about PowerShell DSC, there's loads of things in there. We've got the MBA courses. This is online training courses. I'll go away and learn some more about DevOps. All those DevOps courses. It's always worth looking at the date, because this is all moving very quickly. I'd always go for something that's as recent as possible. Okay. So you want to learn about PowerShell DSC. I call it design state configuration, actually. Oh, there we go. So we've got getting started with PowerShell design state configuration and an advanced design state configuration. And again, it's just a series of videos to go through. Okay. Showing you how to configure everything I've done today. We have got the Parts Unlimited set up. This is some pre-configured ARM templates, scripts, and things, and you can actually deploy them and have a look at how these DevOps processes work. I will publish the slides. I'm going to tidy up some of the scripts and things. I'll tweet when I've done that. I'll make them available on my OneDrive or something, so people do want to grab all the code I've done for these demos that they can do. Okay, so that's. Hope everyone's enjoyed it. If there's any questions, fire away.
Take some questions on the demo now.
Yeah. Any questions? Go on. Is the GUI for doing everything? Yeah, absolutely. You can do it on the GUI. Yeah. Everything I've done, you can do with GUIs. But don't. I'm saying everything. Don't hold me to everything. Sorry. Do it in the GUI, then export it. As a PowerShell script.
Yeah.
No. So we can't create. What we can do though is we can look at the ARM template and the JSON and pull that, and then deploy. Redeploy it as an ARM template. Okay, but yeah, when we're doing DevOps, it's all about automation, isn't it? This continuous cycle. As soon as we get human interaction and clicking about, yeah. And who uses PowerShell? Great. Preaching to the converted. Yeah, so I don't need to say much more.
But if it's not checked into Git, it doesn't exist.
Yeah, so absolutely. Yeah. I'm an infrastructure guy. Did I use source control for my PowerShell scripts? Of course I didn't. Yeah. Now, obviously, I am. Yeah. But it's interesting. So a lot of hands up for PowerShell. Who uses source control, Git or VSTS for the PowerShell scripts. So a few hands haven't gone up.
Turn that around. Who here uses PowerShell on a daily basis and doesn't put it into source control?
Yeah.
Come on. Yeah.
Something we need to be doing. It's great that people are using. Who uses ARM templates already? What people? Yeah. So we link the two. You know, if you're familiar with using PowerShell with Azure, you can pick up the ARM templates pretty quickly. Yeah, go ahead.
How much is this production ready?
I would say, other than the Linux DSC thing, which is new, that what I showed you there, I was at Manchester Airport I've been on leave last week on Saturday. I saw a tweet, it had just been released. Yeah. So, look, but as far as the ARM templates and resource managers, yeah, so it's none that's in preview, it's all out there and good to go. And if you, there's a lot of case studies on the Microsoft site if you're interested. If you've got, you know, and again, if you want to talk more about different individual companies using that sort of thing. But yeah, it's
we use ARM templates in production for real customers today. So we're using it on the daily basis.
Steve can probably talk about something as I can. Yeah. Anything else? Who's using ARM templates in production?
I'm not good.
Not production. For dev test? Or? Yeah. So again, you know, it's good for dev test, but production, yeah, we should be doing it. Because why are we using that? So hold on, so you've got ARM templates here, yeah, and then what have we got? You know, we've got this in production, and you hand it, chuck it over the wall, and yeah, is that what happens?
It's not guilty.
So basically, the dev people over here, and then CSC or RelQ or
keybolds, for example.
Yes.
You can't, without keybolds, even in your demo, you use the convert to secure string.
Well, I can use keybolds, so I'm authenticating to my Azure authentication. Is using, so I've got a PowerShell script that does keyboard stuff. So if I come back here, my authentication is done. Actually, it's not this one; it's another one. Using keybolds, so you can automate the keyboard stuff if you want to. If you're stuck, give us a shout. Help you out. Yeah. The keyboard stuff isn't easy, but it does work once you get it.
I've been told there are issues.
Yeah. Talk about it later.
From Microsoft.
Anything else?
No.
Is that interesting, useful? Yeah.
Do you want to we're going to whip straight into step 2, so we don't really have time to. What time's the picture actually?
Actually, I forgot. I've got some USB sticks here. There's loads of stickers and things, but USB sticks. If anybody does that eval and shows me the confirmation page, yeah. I know it's a bit bribery, but.
Hannah, do you want to grab a seat? And Angus.
Sorry?
What size is it?
8 gig. 8 gig, because we used to give out 4 gig ones, but now the Windows image has gone over 4 gig. Now we have to use 8 gig ones.
I would wear mine.
All right. I'll lurk around in the background. So, quick 30-second introduce yourself in 25 words or less. So start with Hannah. Go.
Hi everyone, I'm Hannah. I'm director and co-founder at Pendrica. What we do is we help our customers adopt infrastructure as code using Chef with the Microsoft platforms. So we do Windows, and we also specialize in Microsoft Azure. I've probably said too much, but I'm just going to quickly plug my other co-founder's book, which is out soon, which is using Chef with Microsoft Azure. So look out for that on our Twitter.
Hi, I'm Pete. I work at Just Eat. I've been breaking that for about 6 years now. We're entirely in the AWS clouds, and we deliver your food when you're hungry and you want takeaway.
Mini fist pump!
My name's Angus Wood. I work for Hewlett Packard Enterprise. I specialize in DevOps and basically helping companies adopt DevOps practices.
You've heard enough from me already.
Marcus Robinson, Technical Agents. Okay, so I'm actually going to ask the first question because I'm going to shaft Pete. So you manage a large-scale dynamic production infrastructure in Azure. How much of the stuff that was just demoed do you use, and how much don't you use? And
We're in AWS.
Sorry, you're in AWS. You're in AWS. You're in Azure. Oh, okay. Forget
So
that.
Totally no Azure.
you can use the STS with AWS, and there's a lot of work going into enabling that at the moment.
We use our own GitHub Enterprise for source control. We have TeamCity for continuous integration and some orchestration bits. We use CloudFormation for our config management for resources in the cloud. We use Code Deploy more recently for taking packages from CI and putting them onto instances. We use auto-scaling so that we don't have to worry about individual servers. We have just clusters. And we have some of our own automation to glue it all together. And one of the demos is I walk onto stage and I kill things in production and then talk about how we can get away with that.
Cool. Open for questions from the audience then.
I've got one. I think good decision. So we talked about these different. I've shown the pure Microsoft stack there, and I think making it quite clear that you have to use what's right for what you're doing. Yeah, and I think that's what he's saying.
I should say we're a .NET platform in AWS.
Yeah, so we can mix and match the technologies. So when it comes to configuration manager, so you mentioned Chef. Okay, so why are your customers using Chef? Yeah, I know the reasons over DSC.
I think with Chef, there's a really strong ecosystem around doing things like test-driven infrastructure. We specialize in sort of implementing some good sort of test-driven infrastructure practices with our customers, and that for me is one of the sort of greatest wins of implementing an ecosystem like the Chef toolkit, because you get all of this with the Chef development kit. The core of the product is open source. You get all of these things for free. You don't have to pay for it if you don't want to. And also, it's really, for us, it's about bringing good development practices into these DevOps teams that are an evolving space. A lot of people think they're doing DevOps if they're clicking around in an online portal and spinning up a cloud server, and that's not infrastructure as code. When we write code, we test it, and I think that's really one of the biggest benefits of the Chef ecosystem that we're working with at the moment.
Yeah, I'd add to that Chef and Puppet are hugely popular and so on. And the thing is that when you get stuck, it's very easy to Google the answer. And because there is this vast number of other people who've been there before, and no, it's nothing against DSC kind of thing, but as a younger product, I think you're probably less likely to immediately find what you want on GitHub or Stack Exchange or whatever than you would with Chef or Puppet, both of which I've used in production and both of which I have a huge amount of respect for.
And we're working quite closely with both Chef and Puppet. So you can use, I was hoping that the second session was going to show Puppet and PowerShell DSC working together, which would lead on quite nicely, mashing the two technologies together. So we can mix and match.
Hey, do you use a test framework, Test Kitchen, Service Pack, or any of those kind of test frameworks? So is your configuration management and infrastructure as code tested in the same kind of way that Anna's talking about?
No, we don't have any tests for any of our config management or deployment automation. We run functional tests against the applications, because if those go green, we don't actually care whether the infrastructure is in particularly good or bad state, because the tests work, the functional tests work. We also run fake load, synthetic load against production between 4 and 8 every day. That's when our peak time is. With another 50% on top of our customer load agents. And so that tells us whether we've got capacity or performance problems. And then, of course, we can just turn off fake load and stop doing that.
Do you have a gold OS image, or do you just take whatever's? So
every month or so, AWS publishes an event on a simple notification topic. We subscribe to that event. That kicks off builds for our base images, Amazon machine images. So we start with a Windows 2012 R2 core, and then we add to it the dependencies, the features, the roles that we need to run our stuff, .NET frameworks and so on and so forth. Chocolatey is a great boon here, package manager. So we do a bunch of those installations, and all of the slow, boring bits we do at the bake time, and then all of the bits to do with our software, like grabbing the package from CI, unzipping it, installing it, we do at the bootstrap time. So this is the bit that I alluded to with Code Deploy earlier.
What do you do about security and compliance? Do you do any automated testing on that as well?
Yeah.
From an infrastructure perspective.
So we define all of our firewall rules in a CloudFormation as a set of security groups, and then we hand that to the auditor along with the changelog, because it's in source control. and then the auditor goes, "Wow, that's amazing."
How do you go about managing schema changes? I've traditionally found that to be a bit of a challenge.
So we to the relational databases, we use a tool called Fluent Migrator, which we code we found on the internet somewhere.
Which is the bit you don't tell the auditors.
So we do that. Developers who are mostly C# developers define their schema differences in a little C# DSL, like create table, add column, that sort of thing. So each class that's a migration has an up method and a down method. To go up, you run the migrators and tell it to go up, and to go down, well, you do the opposite. Fluent Migrator maintains a version table in the database, which is a record of the migrations and the order they've been run in. And so you just have to make sure that your migration fits at the head of that. So then what we do is the developer will go and hopefully test their migration against their own QA database, hopefully both up and down. Sometimes not, but hopefully. And then as soon as that pull request gets merged to master for the migrations repo, then that shotguns out to all of the QA environments to keep everything on head as much as possible for the database schema. And then there's a human in the loop for deploying that to prod. Because you don't want, for example, an index change at your peak time, or indeed any migration at peak time, but especially not that. We're looking at SQL Server 2016, so we can have online operations, but yeah, not yet.
So you mentioned about putting fake load onto your system. Super nice use to see like can we break it?
Yep.
It turns out. How do you go about managing the quality of the code from performance so you don't end up with a large technical debt? How do you go about making sure that good quality code, not just the quickest code it was able to chuck out?
So we don't do any analysis of the quality of the code. That's important to know. I won't say a microservices platform. It's a service-oriented architecture. The idea is that you can get to data via an API. The consumer data sits behind the consumer API. That sort of stuff. Because the monolithic database is really hard to scale. So we're slowly carving it up to that. In terms of the performance and that kind of stuff, we have StatsD and Graphite for near real-time alerting. Sarin for the alerting, StatsD and Graphite for the metrics collection and aggregation. Those are open source tools. They're free and they're reasonably easy to set up. They're harder to scale. Sarin is basically a thing that asks Graphite, hey, is this check definition good or bad every X seconds? And then Sarin, if it's bad, it will notify you on a set of subscriptions that you define. So we have hit chat, we have PagerDuty. And then for fake load, if alerts fire, then we stop fake load because we failed the test. But that's okay because it's synthetic load and we can come back tomorrow and make it pass. And we tend to try and do that.
So when you're getting bang for buck out of your AWS.
Take a breath. Let him take a breath and then somebody else answer a question. But take a breath. Go again.
When you're trying to get good bang for buck out of your AWS platform, I can't remember it was the last time we saw where throwing out a bunch of load at stuff and then, yay, look, we made this change and look at this massive drop that we've had. How do you go about driving those kinds of improvements?
So I guess we do that when we need to reduce costs more than when we need to improve performance. So every now and again, we will go on a cost improvement drive, which also drives performance gains because if you reduce costs, you're probably more efficient, and so probably your code is faster as a consequence. So I wouldn't say that we aim at performance optimizations and graphs that drop off cliffs and go, well, hey, we're faster. We do it as a more bottom line point of view.
I think there's the point about writing fast code and writing code fast. You get the business benefit if you write code fast, and given the lower costs of, we have infrastructure as a service with Azure and Amazon and all the other guys and Google and so on. If you can get out there and start gaining profit from that, that's a win. Mm-hmm. Even though there's some cost, yes, that goes along with it. But getting out there quickly and being able to make change carefree is a huge business benefit.
I would say one thing that we've done recently, actually, a quarter's worth of work shipping a new feature, basically a performance dashboard for restaurants, showing them the orders over time, the amount of money that is. We ship this entirely without servers, and the half of it that we have that can compare to a similar workload that does use servers is 80 times cheaper. We use Lambda for that.
Sorry, can I ask a few more questions? And don't forget, you can ask topics about non-Azure, and you want to ask topics about culture automation. So in front.
I was going to ask about serverless actually, because there's a lot of buzz on Twitter at the moment about serverless. Obviously, you've got Lambda and service and service fabric and all these things. You don't actually need a server anymore. What's the implication of that, do you think, for the role of what we call DevOps engineer? Is server management going to be like
awesome.
An arcane thing that no one does anymore?
I think the role will change, but it's interesting what will happen to configuration management. As we're moving on, you're looking at container.
Sorry, can you also just give a quick definition of serverlessness for those people that haven't heard the term, so everyone's on the same page? Do we want to volunteer a quick definition?
Well, if you want a SQL Server database, there's no need for an actual machine. It's a service now that can be given to you. You get a connection string. That's it. You don't have to care about what's on the other end of that. And in fact, now there are application-specific CPUs are being deployed by people like Amazon for actually running workloads like that. So things are changing away from general purpose to actually more specific application-specific hardware, but you don't have to care anymore.
So stitching together SaaS.
Yeah, I have a shorter definition, which is there's a text box in that portal I can paste my code into, and it takes care of everything else.
IaaS is definitely, as far as I can see it, I believe, is a transition technology. Won't be long, before we move off IaaS. It's our platform as a service, software as a service. It's no brainer to me. Why are we going to still manage servers when we don't have to?
It's about spending your time as a business focusing on the things that differentiate you, and the things that don't, sort of fundamentals of running a technology platform, give those to someone else.
Yeah. People don't make money resizing lawns is something that is a phrase that's used around HP quite a lot. And it's true, you don't. I mean, it's just a support job. And if it can be done cheaper somewhere else, then happy days. Just give it to somebody else.
You asked about the future of the DevOps engineer. When we asked about PowerShell, a lot of people do it. So it's all about the automation. Those techniques are still going to be needed to, as far as I see it, for automating the infrastructure and testing, things like that. So a lot of those skills are transferable, but the traditional server management world.
I would say somewhere there is a computer. Someone's managing that. It might just be abstracted away from the regular consumer.
One of my colleagues said after a few, but we've all got to move up a layer, an abstraction layer.
Yeah.
And it is, there is someone going to be doing that management underneath in some part, but is it us or is it service providers, Microsoft, AWS?
Yes, exactly.
They're actually looking after that on a massive scale. So, mere mortals like us don't need to worry about it.
We'll take a classic example from HPE. They announced a major partnership with Azure, back in December, and closed down their own OpenStack Helium cloud.
Yes, indeed, walked away from that.
Yeah. So you've got one of the largest sort of services and hardware companies in the world turning around and saying, you know what, I can't go fucking ask managing service. We'll push as much of our business towards Azure as possible.
Free Microsoft world. So
do the maths.
Free Microsoft world. We were doing outsourced IT infrastructure. That's what my company did basically. It was a no-brainer moving to Azure, and the guys were very much. When I said we were going to do it, they were like, customers won't pay the extra. What about our jobs? There was a lot of stress and worry. But once we actually got into the swing of doing the migrations, life was so much easier, and they actually found they were doing more, things to improve the service we're offering, rather than running down to the data center on a weekend, switching drives and things like that. So there's always naysayers that say it's not going to happen. Okay, but I think the momentum's there.
Yeah, but you actually get better infrastructure at the end of it because you pay for what you actually use. I used to design data centers, and so you would have to go around very, very carefully to each individual group and say, give me some capacity numbers, show me what you're going to be using, and I'm going to think a few years ahead, and so on, so on, so on. And I would then take it and build it, and so on. And it would be huge echoing halls of vast amounts of computing power, of which 20% was used because it was a brand new data center. My power bill was enormous, my cooling bill was enormous, and so on. And if I got it wrong, which was, let's face it, quite likely because of all the possible futures, I would only designed for one, then I was pretty much stuck with it. I didn't really have very much flexibility and so on. Nowadays, with Azure and with AWS and with Google's platform and the other smaller ones, if it's not right, I don't really care. It's a tissue paper. I wipe my nose with it, I throw it away, I commission a new one. You know, it's very, very simple. And that actually means it does end up costing less. You know, because you pay for what you really, really use.
What about the downtimes that you don't have time, then you don't have the service available?
Well, I've blown out data centers. We've all blown out data centers. I mean, I've had networking gear fail on me. You know, the best laid failover plans of mice and men are Afghan and Glay. And you know, yes, there will be cloud outages. On balance, however, in my experience at least, they're pretty much at the same level or better than doing it yourself.
So
I'm going to put Azure's availability or AWS's availability up against that data center that you manage in the basement of your building every day and twice on Sunday.
People used to say, we had, go a few years back, we had the whole Exchange versus Office 365 debate. People would go, oh, we're never going to do it. 9% of the room said, no, we're not using our Exchange service. You ask the same question now. Who's using a hosted email service in this room? Yeah. Who's still got on-premise mail service? A lot of people. I'm quite surprised, actually.
How many of you work in financial
to me, that's a
services?
no-brainer.
Yeah, same people. How many of you know that it's 2016?
Yeah. So, but there was a lot of resistance to that. But once you do it, it's a no-brainer.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know, there's an element of unstoppability to this, and part of DevOps is jumping on board, steering it, being involved, getting to shape the future. And it's not just about technology. There is, you know, the people in the process side of things, kind of thing, which is probably more my area nowadays that I'm getting old, and so on. Bringing people along board with that, and essentially getting the business to buy in while we as technical people, you know, do the rest of that side, is actually getting easier and easier and easier, I think, because you can demonstrate benefits. You do have exemplars, like the gentleman sitting beside me, who are really, you know, a shining beacon for this. And people like Microsoft bringing the game up with the Azure tools, the ARM, and so on and so on and so on. It's just fantastic for us all.
So that's a quick question. Who in the audience would say that their organization is undergoing a DevOps transformation? By DevOps transformation, I'm not just talking about sticking in Chef, Puppet, and Ansible, but where the organization as a whole is actually looking at creating product-focused, multidisciplinary teams, cross-skilling people, actually seriously looking at all of those cultural sides of DevOps. Okay, that's pretty good, pretty good. Does anybody want to stick their hands up and say how well it's going or how bad it's going? Yeah?
So financial services here, very conservative. We have started, we know it's wrong. So we've replaced stealth, we've started transforming one small group at a time by showing 2, maybe 3 orders of magnitude improvements in stability and mean time between failures and all the other usual metrics that we measure. We're measuring the heck out of all of them.
Have you proposed a talk for WinOps yet?
Not using much in the way of technology for this. Just little bits here and there.
So I'm working with a large investment bank at the moment doing a DevOps transformation, and they have exactly as you say. There's a very much conservative. For example, virtualization is out. It is either you run it on real tin, or you will not get supported, and that's for the core trading systems. You know, the things that are actually handling quite literally billions and billions of pounds, tens of billions in fact in this case. However, there are vast amounts of supporting infrastructure around that. For example, all the development environments, you know, all of the build environments, all of the testing systems, and so on, so on, so on. And all of these can be taken, virtualized, DevOpsized, and so on, without touching that delicate core. So whilst the delicate core in financial services may stay on-prem for the foreseeable future, there's still plenty of work to be done in supporting infrastructure.
On the cultural side of DevOps, what would you say is the biggest challenge of getting traditional dyed-in-the-wool devs and traditional dyed-in-the-wool operations people? You'll take my GUI out of my cold dead hands. What did you just say?
So we decided about 3 years ago, no, 4 years ago now, the developers will support their code in production. That means that if I write some code, then I will deploy it and I will monitor it and I will read its log files because hopefully I've remembered to write some logs. And if it goes badly, I will yank it out of production, and that will happen on my personal time because that's when I'm on call, because our peak time is sort of 5 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night. And that's a rota, you know, I'm not always on call. I'm on at the moment. And yeah, that was really one of the sea changes that we had. Suddenly, you now need to, I guess, give a shit. So if you're supporting your own code, then you also have to not ship shit. Sorry for the vernacular, but it's really that. And so this opens up a bunch of, I guess, levers for an organization, because now you've got you get to prioritize your work more openly and more effectively. If you just had a bad night on call 3 nights in a row, or 2 nights in a row, or even just 1 night, you're going to come in the next morning and you're going to want to fix that thing that fell over, or you're going to want to insulate your thing against whatever your dependency was that fell over and hurt you.
Technical debt suddenly gets a whole
Yeah.
level of priority.
Yeah, and you can then have a reasonable argument to say to the business, actually, I'm going to be working on this. I'm not going to be working on the whizzing new feature, because
This is costing you.
this is causing me to come in the morning burned out and hating my life. So I will be working on mitigations today. Yeah, that's an effective incentive for the engineers to actually push back on the business and learn how to say no. We're not going to do this thing. We're going to do this thing, but after we fix this thing that's just caused us to lose a day of productivity because we're all really tired.
So nice as an infrastructure and operations guy to think of a developer coming in the morning, having been up all night, complaining that their life sucks and they're burnt out. Yeah, last 20 years of my life.
Well, I should have been a dev.
Yeah, I was originally. It was in a mainframe environment. That sucked even worse. There was some more people who had their hands up. Over here.
We're about to start looking into an on-premise automation tool. Now, Orchestrate was what we were looking at initially, but our architect recommended to look into SMA. Do you find that a lot of your customers are using that to sort of breach and create a hybrid cloud?
Sorry, SMA, I'm not really with
Service
Service manager.
So you can use Service Manager with Orchestrator, yeah. But it's as time moves on, if we're looking at Azure Stack, then we'll be looking at Azure Automation as the progression route from, say, Orchestrator. Yeah. So are people using it? Yes. My job is looking to what we're doing in the years to come. Yeah, and as we see it, it's Azure Automation is the way forward rather than Orchestrator. I don't know if that.
From what I read a little bit about it, but from my understanding of it is that it ties in with the automation that Azure provides, but it's actually hosted internally. So
I'm now pure Azure, really. A lot of what I do. You guys seem to be. Do you have something to say on that? Or? No?
Don't do it. Sounds a bit like old world to me.
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely. So I guess that's what I'm saying is, on-prem, what we're looking at with Azure Stack is giving us a consistent environment, so we can do the same thing in the cloud as we can on-prem, and we have this hybrid environment. We can only do that with Azure services. So if we're looking at things like Orchestrator, Service Manager, is SMA Service Manager, is it?
No.
No.
It's
SMA was the precursor to Azure Automation, I thought.
Yeah, but before the Azure Resource Management, they had the SMA.
right. Okay.
If you're tied to on-premise, what's the recommendation? Because Azure Stack isn't going GA until
The System Center Suite is still there and does a good job of what it does for on-prem environments and things.
That?
So what, Azure Pack?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you got Azure Pack, I guess. Yeah, so Azure Pack's still out there. Anybody using Windows Azure Pack?
Yeah, it's all production.
Yeah, so you're doing that for production. Yeah, so yeah, Windows Azure Pack's there. I'm less customer focused. I'm more, telling the story of what we're doing in the future. So I'm probably not the best person to answer that.
Yeah, Microsoft for everything which is not Azure Stack or this kind of things. I'm not from Microsoft, so just saying my point of view on that. they're not really giving clear signals about what's going to go, about the pack, another side, the pack. So I would not, if it's a new implementation, I would try not to use it yet to see where they're going, and maybe come and talk to Jeffrey Snover and ask about it.
That's a good question. If I can get Jeffrey Snover on one of the panels.
And I think even working with Microsoft, I don't know what's happening next week. Because everything's moving so quickly. The technology moves, things are getting released. The future is Azure Stack and the Azure Public Cloud. Okay, and we were just talking about serverless. What's going to happen with Windows Server? Who knows?
You might also want to check out something called Terraform from the HashiCorp Terra Suite.
Yeah, we're a vSphere shop and the vSphere provider in Terraform.
It'll only get better.
It is, but yeah, we've actually moved to PowerShell.
It's better on every other team.
Yeah, that's why I'd love to. You know, the EC2 provider, and I'm like, why can't I use that?
Shop on it, to be honest. So just on that point, I'm actually going to the Microsoft Build conference in San Francisco next week. If anybody has any questions, I'm actually going to have the opportunity to talk direct to Microsoft engineers on a number of different topics. So if you would want to email me, steve@devopsguys.com. If any of you have got literally some burning questions you want answered, I'm in morning meetings, I'm at the conference, and then I'm in evening meetings. So if you've got a question, I can ask the people from Microsoft who are writing.
And the same way,
Jamie, if you want a question,
same way, I've got business cards and you've got my Twitter handle. Get in touch, give us the questions. If they're in writing, I can. I've got Skype for Business with 80,000 contacts on it. And we're very open. The company seems to be changed. It's already been there a few months, but it is very open. I can just ping people an email and say, look, customer with this problem, what's the answer?
And the people in the DX, so the developer experience evangelism team. So we at DevOps Guys had our own internal conference last week. Colin Beale, who's in the DevOps evangelism team, focused on resource manager. He came down and spent half a day with us, did some demos, gave a presentation at our own internal conference. So, if you want somebody to come and give a presentation to your technical architects and explain the direction, you can reach out to the DX team, and I'm pretty sure
we want to speak to you. We can't all know that. We can't all do it. There's so many things. We all can't do everything, but we will know some of us have the answer. The other thing is we're getting driven towards the MSDN forums to try and engage with the communities. So if you do put questions on there, drop us a tweet, to make sure we go look at it. And if I don't know the answer, I can just find somebody else who will answer it for you. And in that, because if it's in that public environment, then even if you're a smaller shop or don't think you've got the, we can make sure that answer gets out there in the public so everybody knows the story.
Got a question?
Yeah, slightly different topic. What would you see as the value of moving to fortnightly Scrum type plans to regular daily?
The way we did that was we just started deploying throughout the release, the Scrum window. Whenever we had something that was ready to go, and normally this means behind a feature toggle, and we can click it on and then click it off, we would push it to prod. So just did that more often. We didn't wait for the end of the ceremony.
Yeah, I was going to say it's usually even if you've got all of your automation pipeline in place, it usually comes down to engineering rigor and practices and quality at the end of the day. If you're not doing test-driven development, if you're not doing BDD, if when you check your code into the trunk, you're not sort of 100% sure, almost there and then, that you've got a potential release candidate, then you're doing something wrong. And what I find is actually that's probably the hardest thing to crack. Actually,
exactly what she said. I was going to say the exact same thing. Are you doing strong TDD or BDD with really good unit testing, really good source code, and really good thing?
You're not. We're not.
So you're just throwing it out there.
That's maybe over egging it a bit. So we have about a dozen different teams, small teams, all independent, all loosely coupled, or trying to be. And as a team, if you want to ship something that doesn't have any tests that you haven't remembered to compile before committing it and pushing, then you go nuts. But your team is going to hate you because you want to have the confidence that you're going to be successful at the end of the pipeline in the production, and production will not laugh at you. But if you can do that without writing tests and without being as rigorous as that, then go for it. That's why we test in production with performance and capacity. It's because having a bottleneck, having a gate on the way to production would slow us down too much.
So if you have feature tools,
Well, so yes and no, right? Personally, I want a world where I can have Git push production from my workstation, and then for it to be put into a pipeline, the first stage of which would be compile and laugh at me if I've forgotten to compile and it doesn't. And then escalate through a QA environment, run some functional tests, escalate into production, open it up to a few beta users, maybe some employees, maybe 10% of traffic, but all in a way that if things go bad, then the pipeline will laugh at me and ridicule me in my hit chat channel, and then put my build back, and I can have another go. With Lambda, with serverless computing, the latency between commit, push, and in production is about 40 seconds. With server-based computing that we've got at the moment, it's well, if I bypass QA, which is possible because I can choose to do that, then it's about 3 minutes or so, depending on how many tests there are. Obviously, the smaller the package, the faster it goes because there's less to do. But usually with servers, we're looking at about 40 minutes end to end, if not an hour and a half, depending again on the size of the test suite, the rigor in which you want to run. But if I wanted to with Lambda, then I could every time I commit, it would push to production. Because the other thing to say is that with Lambda, because it's new code, we're actually being rigorous with the tests. So we actually have continuous tests going through in production as well as QA that don't depend on any data in the different environments. And so we have the same level of confidence as we push.
I suppose it depends upon the impact of a failed change, doesn't it?
Yes.
So if you're willing to accept that impact,
exactly,
you can propagate them really quickly.
Yeah.
If you've got really robust failback methods,
yeah.
if you can roll back quickly and recover them, you can be more confident and save time.
If we're pushing the monolith, then yes, we absolutely push slower because it's heavier. If we're pushing a single function, then we can roll it back just as simply.
It sounds like a terrifying environment to train.
It's chaotic, but it works.
And on that note, hashtag it's chaotic and it works. The pizzas are here, right? So they're getting cold. So please come talk to the guys and ask questions. Thank you very much to our panel for jumping in at the last minute. So please give them a big hand. This is kind of interesting. Who actually liked the panel format? Do you like